I believe personally that assisted dying is like of the person's own belief. I think if they're in a place where their quality of life is not acceptable for them to carry on living, then I think they should be able to make that decision. I do believe it's a tough one to make, especially if you've got family or friends and people that care and love about you. But I think if you're in a place where you're really struggling, then I personally don't see an issue with it.
I believe that we should let nature take its course. You know, I think nobody had the right to terminate somebody's life. Let the Lord decide that. That's what I believe. Because the hospital I work in, I see people dying every day. You know, and some family, it's very hard for them to make a decision. But I believe in leaving the patient there before they leave the land of the living and let nature take its course.
I personally think that people that are suffering should choose when they want to die, because if they're going to lay there and suffer in pain, there's just no point of life.
I think people should have a choice. If it's managed correctly, I think it's a good thing. You wouldn't let an animal suffer. People put animals down if they're in, and you see some people suffering terribly. No, I wouldn't want that for somebody that I loved.
I am in favour of assisted dying as long as the backup is there to make sure that it is that person's wish, no coercion at all.
Let us move to the next part of the debate, which is the representation of bills, and I have the presentation of the bill. Kim, lead Beta.
You're all right.
Terminally ill adults end-of-life bill.
Second reading what day?
Friday the 29th of November.
Well, I think lots of people are of the view that this is all very rushed. You know, the bill was only published 3 weeks ago, so people haven't had time really to get into the detail of it. You know, there's been lots of assurances about safeguards, but then that's always the case. Those who are always pushing for this always assure all sorts of safeguards. But in every jurisdiction in the world where it's happened, the safeguards have been removed or eroded over time.
For those people who palliative care and medication isn't working and are dying in pain, they have three very awful options. Option one is to flee abroad, to go to a foreign country for an assisted death on their own terms. The second option is to take matters into their own hands, is to refuse food, treatment, water, or even die by suicide in often quite dramatic ways. Or their third option is to suffer and die in pain at the very end of their lives and have their families witness that. We see people in these tragic situations. We speak to people who have experienced that. I spoke to someone recently who every single day for the last 2 weeks of their life, their partner begged them to kill them. And it's just a horrible, traumatic end of a life. And that's why legislation is needed, because essentially assisted dying is already happening. It's just happening tragically. And we need a proper safeguarded route and a choice and an option for these people.
The law as it stands is not fit for purpose. You can have brilliant palliative care, and that's really, really important that is part of this conversation. We've got people working in hospices and settings up and down the country helping people at the end of life. But for some people, palliative care is not going to ease their pain and suffering, and they are asking for the choice to have an assisted death, and I think they should be given that choice. We need a robust bill, as far as I'm concerned, so this bill will be about terminally ill people, and it will be about terminally ill people who do not have long left to live. I understand that people would want a bill that goes further, but I am nervous about having wide criteria without really stringent parameters, because I think that's when people really will worry about where this direction of travel is. So as far as I'm concerned, the bill needs to be tight, it needs to be robust, and it needs to be just for people with terminal illness.